The residents of the Hawthorne building always complained about the elevator. It groaned, it shook, and sometimes it skipped floors entirely. But for Elias, an insomniac who wandered the halls when the world was asleep, the elevator was a curiosity. He noticed a pattern that no one else saw. Every night, exactly at 3:33 a.m., the old mechanical dial above the doors would twitch. The arrow would push past the number 12, straining against a gear that shouldn't exist, pointing to a blank space on the brass plate. One rainy Tuesday, fueled by curiosity and exhaustion, Elias stepped inside at 3:32 a.m. He didn't press a button. He waited. As the second hand of his watch ticked to 3:33, the elevator lurched violently. The lights flickered and died, replaced by a low, red emergency hum. The cabin didn't go down to the lobby. It went up. It went up past the roof, past the water tower, into a space that geometry couldn't explain. And then, with a cheerful ding, the doors slid open. The air on the 13th floor tasted stale, like dust and old perfume sealed in a jar. Elias stepped out onto a carpet that was a garish, swirl-patterned orange, a relic of the 80s that had been ripped out of the rest of the building decades ago. The hallway was impossibly long, stretching into darkness on both ends, with only a single door illuminated by a flickering sconce. Apartment 13B. There was no sound of traffic, no hum of the city. Just the overwhelming, heavy pressure of silence. Elias walked towards the door. It was slightly ajar. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He pushed the door open. He expected cobwebs, decay, the smell of rot. Instead, he was hit by the smell of roast chicken and rosemary. The apartment wasn't abandoned. It was alive. Or at least, it was pretending to be. Elias stepped inside. The living room was a time capsule. A bulky CRT television sat in the corner, playing static that hissed quietly. On the coffee table, a magazine featured a celebrity who had died 20 years ago. But it was the dining table that froze Elias's blood. 4 places were set. Plates were filled with mashed potatoes and roast chicken, steam still rising from the food as if it had been served seconds ago. A glass of red wine had a lipstick stain on the rim. In the crystal ashtray, a cigarette was perched, a long column of ash defying gravity, smoke curling lazily into the air. It was a scene of domestic normalcy interrupted by, what? Where were the people? It felt as if they had been raptured, plucked from existence between one bite and the next. Elias touched the teapot. It was scalding hot. He wasn't looking at the past. He was standing inside it. Elias returned the next night. And the night after. He realized the scene wasn't static. It was progressing. But painfully slowly. On the second night, the wine glass that was standing was now tipped over, a red stain spreading across the white tablecloth like a gunshot wound. On the third night, the chair at the head of the table was overturned, lying on its side. Elias realized he was watching a violent struggle taking place in invisible slow motion. He became a detective of the unseen. He examined the carpet and saw deep indentations, footprints of heavy boots that weren't there yesterday. He saw a vase shatter near the wall, the shards glinting under the sofa. Someone had barged in. The family hadn't vanished. They were being hunted in this very room, right in front of him, by an entity he couldn't see. The silence of the room was now screaming. On the fourth night, the atmosphere in the room was heavy, oppressive. The static on the TV was louder, more aggressive. Elias searched for a reason, a name. He found it in a child's bedroom. Under a bed that was made with superhero sheets, he found a diary. It belonged to a boy named Leo. The last entry was dated October 31st, 1989. The handwriting was shaky, hurried. The man from the basement is here. Daddy let him in. He says he needs to fix the pipes, but he's holding a hammer. I'm scared. I'm going to hide in the. The entry ended there. A streak of ink trailed off the page. Elias felt a cold breath on his neck. The man from the basement. The superintendent. He remembered the old plaque in the lobby listing past employees. The caretaker in 1989 was a man named Mr. Vane. He was never caught. He had disappeared the same week the family on the 13th floor, a floor erased from the records to hide the tragedy, went missing. Elias rushed to the bathroom to splash water on his face. The reality of the cold case was suffocating him. He turned on the tap. Rusty, brown water sputtered out. He looked up into the mirror cabinet. But the reflection didn't show the bathroom behind him. It showed the living room. And in the mirror's reflection, the invisible was made visible. He saw them. He saw the family huddled in the corner. And he saw him. A hulking, shadowy figure standing over them, raising a weapon. It wasn't a ghost, it was a memory imprinted on the glass. Elias spun around, but the room behind him was empty. He looked back at the mirror. The killer in the reflection stopped. He turned his head slowly. He wasn't looking at the family anymore. He was looking out of the mirror. He was looking directly at Elias. The elevator bell dinged. 3:34 a.m. The minute was almost up. The loop was resetting. But this time, the room began to decay rapidly. The food rotted in seconds, the wallpaper peeled and curled like burning skin, the lights exploded. The pocket dimension was collapsing because it had been observed. The killer in the mirror pounded against the glass, trying to break through into Elias's timeline. Elias ran. The hallway stretched, elongating like taffy, pulling him back. He could hear heavy footsteps behind him, wet, squelching footsteps. He threw himself into the elevator just as the mirror shattered in the distance. He smashed the lobby button. The doors groaned, fighting to stay open. A hand, gray, decayed, and holding a rusted hammer, jammed between the closing doors. Elias kicked it, screaming. The doors slammed shut, severing the fingers, which turned to dust instantly. The elevator dropped. When he reached the lobby, it was morning. The sun was shining. But in his pocket, Elias felt a weight. He pulled out the diary. It was the only proof that the 13th floor existed. And he knew, with chilling certainty, that he could never take the elevator again.